Welcome back, movie buffs. Today, we are diving into the 2026 movie Capture. But before we begin, don't forget to hit subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss any of our heart-pounding movie breakdowns. The movie opens with Megan and Peter, a couple who lose their way while jogging through the woods. During the hike, Megan badly injures her leg, making it difficult for her to walk. Peter tries to stay positive, but their situation gets worse when they discover both of their phones have no battery. With no way to call for help, they continue searching for a way out and eventually find a lonely house deep in the forest. The place looks abandoned, but they have no other option. Peter knocks on the front door, gets no answer, and decides to enter through the basement instead. Inside, he finds a telephone, but there's no signal. Just then, he hears strange shuffling sounds coming from upstairs. Outside, Megan notices a security camera on the upper floor that seems to be watching them. Peter goes upstairs to investigate but finds nothing except the same camera. Moments later, Megan begins hearing soft whispers. The voices grow louder until an evil force takes control of her. She becomes possessed and tragically dies. The story then switches to a young woman named Abby, who wakes up to someone repeatedly ringing her doorbell. Standing outside is her foster brother, Steve, who has come to stay with her for a few days. During their conversation, we learn that Abby has been trying to track down her biological parents and had asked Steve to help. He tells her he couldn't find much, but a lawyer recently contacted him about her and left his phone number. Abby calls the lawyer, who soon visits her. He reveals that an abandoned house has recently been found, and surprisingly, the property legally belongs to Abby. She's stunned since she grew up in foster care and had no idea she owned anything. The lawyer explains that although the bank should have taken the house years ago, it was somehow never repossessed. Since Abby is the legal owner, she signs the paperwork and claims the property. While packing to leave, Steve receives a call from Abby's foster sister, Laura. She's angry because Abby has been staying in her apartment for 2 months without telling her, and she only found out through a neighbor. Laura demands that Abby move out immediately. Abby apologizes and explains that she's leaving that very day because she has inherited a house upstate. She plans to renovate it, sell it, and use the money to repay everything she owes. Deep down, she's also hoping the house will finally reveal the truth about her biological family. Steve offers to drive Abby, but she decides to make the trip alone. She takes a train, and when she gets off at the station, she finds the place completely deserted. There isn't a single taxi in sight. Hoping to find some help, she walks into a nearby bar and asks the bartender if there's a taxi service in town. He says there isn't. Everything changes when Abby mentions she's trying to get to 38 Miller Road. The entire bar suddenly falls silent. Confused by everyone's reaction, Abby asks if anyone is heading that way and says she's happy to wait. Instead, the bartender tells her she'd be better off getting back on the next train. Abby explains that she owns a house there and even offers to buy a drink or two for anyone willing to give her a ride. At first, nobody speaks. Then a young man finally agrees to take her. On the drive, he apologizes for how everyone acted, saying Abby reminded the locals of someone from the past. When they reach the house, Abby thanks him. He introduces himself as Kyle, and before leaving, they exchange phone numbers. As Abby walks toward the property, it's revealed to be the same mysterious house from the beginning of the movie. The moment she steps inside, a terrible smell fills the air, but she's surprised to find that the electricity is still working. While exploring the house, she discovers an old school certificate, suggesting that someone once lived there. Upstairs, she hears a strange noise coming from the attic. Curious, she climbs up to investigate. Inside the attic, Abby finds a baby crib, a doll, and several old pieces of clothing. She also notices a video camera and a collection of tapes, each marked with a different date. A little later, Abby sees that she missed a call from Steve. Since there's no phone signal inside the house, she walks into the nearby woods to call him back. Steve tells her he recently met an old friend who works as a real estate agent and might be interested in investing in the property. He asks Abby to send a few pictures of the house. While standing outside, Abby looks back at the house and briefly thinks she sees someone standing in an upstairs window. She quickly dismisses it, convincing herself it was just her imagination, or maybe the drinks she had earlier. That night, Abby decides to watch the tapes she found. The first recording introduces a happy couple, Jason and Cameron. Jason is excited about filming home videos, but Cameron, a psychologist, isn't very interested. The tape also reveals that she's about to meet her very first patient. When Abby rewinds the video to watch it again, she notices something disturbing. For a brief moment, Cameron stares directly into the camera, almost as if she can see Abby watching. The second tape shows the couple outside, where Cameron interviews Jason as practice for her upcoming therapy session. In the third recording, Jason begins showing signs of a serious illness, but Cameron remains hopeful, promising that she won't give up on him. Later that night, while Abby is asleep, a dark figure quietly walks through the hallway. The following morning, Abby finds an old letter confirming that Jason had been diagnosed with a serious illness. Later, she goes for a jog before taking photos of the house to send to Steve. After returning and having a shower, she notices something strange. A room that had been locked before is now standing open. A few moments later, she hears a slow creaking noise coming from the attic. Curious, she heads upstairs to investigate. Looking through the old camera she found, she sees what appears to be someone standing outside the house. But when she lowers the camera and looks with her own eyes, the figure is gone. Soon after, Abby receives a message from Kyle, who later stops by to check on her. Wanting answers, she asks him what he knows about the house. Kyle is reluctant at first but finally says it's easier if she sees the truth herself. He takes her to the local bar and shows her an old news report. It reveals that 13 bodies were discovered inside the house once owned by Jason and Cameron. The gruesome discovery came after months of missing person investigations. The report also says that Jason and Cameron's burned bodies were found buried in the backyard, while their baby daughter was never found. The shocking story leaves Abby speechless. Suddenly, one of the customers begins shouting at her, demanding that she leave. Kyle quickly steps in, takes Abby outside and drives her back to the house. On the way, Abby admits she's starting to regret coming there. Kyle reassures her that none of what happened was her fault. He explains that the angry man had lost his son, one of the victims discovered in the house. When they arrive, Abby invites Kyle inside for a drink. As they talk, Kyle reveals that most of the people who died there were Cameron's therapy patients. Then he tells Abby something even more unbelievable: she is Jason and Cameron's missing daughter. The whole thing suddenly began to make sense. According to the town's story, Jason discovered Cameron's dark secret and became convinced she was a witch. Believing he had to stop her, he set the house on fire, but ended up dying in the flames himself. The one mystery no one has ever been able to explain is how their baby survived. Having grown up in foster care, Abby never knew who her real parents were, and the revelation leaves her overwhelmed. Trying to take her mind off everything, she asks Kyle why he decided to help her in the first place. Smiling, he admits it was because she seemed kind and pretty. The conversation becomes more personal, and before long, the two share a kiss and they end up spending the night together. The next morning, Kyle is about to leave when he notices a light shining from the attic. Curious, he goes upstairs to investigate. Inside, he finds a television switched on. To his surprise, the screen is showing a live image of himself as though the old camera is filming him. He turns to leave, but suddenly he can't move. An invisible force holds him in place, and before he has a chance to escape, something reaches through the screen and attacks him. Within moments, Kyle is dead. Later that morning, Abby wakes up and sees that Kyle's car is no longer outside. She assumes he left early and doesn't think much about it. Instead, she continues watching the old videotapes, which contain recordings of Cameron's therapy sessions. Eventually, she finds one labeled Kevin and decides to watch it. Kevin looks pale, exhausted, and mentally disturbed. He tells Cameron he can't even remember how he ended up there. As the session continues, he claims that something evil is living inside him and that the devil is trying to break free. Suddenly, his entire personality changes and he appears to become possessed. A disturbing smile spreads across his face as he starts talking about Cameron's pregnancy, something he couldn't possibly know. Then, without warning, Kevin lets out a horrifying scream, and the recording suddenly ends. Not long afterwards, Abby receives a text from Steve and calls him. Steve explains that selling the house will be extremely difficult because of its terrible past. Abby tells him she already knows about its history. She also mentions the strange camera, convinced that there's something evil connected to it. Steve begs her to leave and come home, but Abby refuses. She believes that whatever began in that house is something she has to uncover. After ending the call, she continues searching through the house. While going through Cameron's notes, Abby discovers several handwritten documents, including one warning that the camera itself is evil. Curious, she picks it up and carefully examines it as she searches the house for more clues. When she returns to the attic, she hears the familiar creaking noise again. Looking through the camera, she slowly scans the room. Suddenly, a terrifying figure appears in the viewfinder. Frightened, Abby runs downstairs. At the front door, she finds a woman waiting. It's Kyle's sister. She asks if Abby has seen him because he never came home and hasn't answered any calls since the previous night. Then she shows Abby something disturbing, a photo Kyle secretly took while Abby was asleep. He had sent it to a friend, joking that she was a junior witch. Abby feels hurt and uncomfortable, but truthfully tells her she has no idea where Kyle is. Before leaving, Kyle's sister asks for Abby's phone number in case she hears from him. As Abby's typing, she glances inside the house and notices Kyle's cap. The sight shocks her, but she chooses not to mention it. That night, Abby listens to an audio recording. This one features Dr. Franklin discussing strange supernatural cases with Cameron. At the same time, Kyle's sister quietly sneaks into the house. As she steps inside, she hears a slow creaking sound coming from upstairs and follows it. Back on the tape, Abby watches as Dr. Franklin shares a disturbing theory. He explains that even ordinary objects can become possessed by supernatural forces. As he studies a photo of Kevin, he notices a strange symbol burned into the side of his neck. He identifies it as an ancient demonic mark commonly associated with possession. Dr. Franklin believes Kevin unknowingly brought an evil presence into Cameron's home, where it somehow attached itself to her camera. He warns Cameron not to treat another patient in the house until the camera is destroyed. Meanwhile, Kyle's sister makes her way upstairs. She eventually reaches the attic and finds the old camera. Curious, she picks it up and looks through the viewfinder. To her horror, she sees Kyle's dead body. Before she has time to react, an unseen force attacks her. Elsewhere, Steve continues investigating the history of the house using the photos Abby had sent him. Back inside the house, Abby watches more of Cameron's recordings. One by one, she sees Cameron's patients become possessed after coming into contact with the camera. Every one of them eventually dies. She then discovers a tape showing Jason and Cameron arguing over their baby. During the heated confrontation, Cameron tells Jason he'll never see their daughter again. The recording also reveals the tragic events that led to both of their deaths. Deeply disturbed by everything she's uncovered, Abby gathers every videotape and decides to burn them. At that moment, she finally realizes the mysterious woman she's been seeing throughout the house is actually her mother. At the same time, Steve uncovers another disturbing detail. All 15 bodies found in the house had their faces deliberately scratched beyond recognition. With help from an old friend, he discovers an even darker secret about Jason. Back at the house, Abby burns every tape hoping to end the nightmare. But nothing changes. Holding the camera, she begins seeing the ghosts of Cameron's former patients silently walking into one room. Drawn by curiosity, she follows them. Meanwhile, Steve repeatedly tries calling Abby to warn her, but she doesn't answer. He gets into his car and leaves her a voicemail instead. He explains that 8 years earlier, an unidentified man was admitted to a psychiatric hospital under the name John Doe. 2 years ago he escaped. That man, Steve reveals, is Abby's biological father. He had faked his own death by leaving his teeth inside one of the burned bodies, allowing everyone to believe he had died in the fire. In reality, he has been hiding inside the house ever since. Meanwhile, Abby follows the ghost of her mother into the basement, where she discovers a hidden door. As she steps inside, strange sounds echo through the room. Then she makes a horrifying discovery: several dead bodies, all with their faces scratched beyond recognition. Before she has time to escape, something attacks her. When Abby wakes up, she's tied to a chair in the basement. Beside her is Kyle's sister, who has also been captured. Moments later, the mysterious figure finally reveals himself. It's John Doe, Abby's biological father. Speaking in a calm and almost caring voice, he tells Abby how much he loves her. He then says he wants to show her something before disappearing into another room. A few moments later, John returns carrying the cursed camera. He places it in front of Kyle's sister and switches it on. Almost immediately, she becomes possessed, and the evil entity brutally ends her. Abby screams in horror, but John quickly stuffs a gag into her mouth. Just then, Steve arrives at the house looking for Abby. As he searches the rooms upstairs, John suddenly attacks him from behind and knocks him unconscious. A short time later, John returns to the basement holding a pair of scissors. He hands them to Abby and tells her to cut herself free before walking away. After a difficult struggle, Abby finally manages to free herself. She rushes upstairs and notices Steve's car still parked outside, realizing he never left. Knowing he's in danger, she grabs a knife and carefully heads toward the attic. There, she finds Steve tied up while John prepares to kill him using the cursed camera. But instead of doing it himself, John hands the camera to Abby and orders her to finish Steve. As Abby looks through the camera, she sees the ghost of her mother, who calmly assures her that everything will be all right. Abby slowly raises the camera. Instead of aiming it at Steve, she apologizes to him, then turns it toward John. The moment she switches it on, the evil entity turns against its own master. John is violently attacked and killed. With the nightmare finally over, Abby unties Steve, and together they burn the cursed camera, destroying it once and for all. Steve heads back inside to collect his car keys so they can finally leave. Abby waits outside by herself. After a few moments, she hears strange noises coming from the woods and cautiously walks toward them. Suddenly, she sees one of Cameron's dead patients standing among the trees, smiling and waving at her. Terrified, Abby calls out for Steve. But when she turns back toward the house, she freezes. Standing in the attic window are the ghosts of both her parents, silently staring at her. Unable to hold herself together, Abby breaks down in tears. In the movie's final scene, the story takes one last terrifying turn. Abby and Steve are shown tied up in the attic, revealing that the nightmare isn't over after all. Hidden inside the house is another cursed camera, waiting for its next victims. That's a wrap on our breakdown of the 2026 movie Capture. What do you think about this movie? Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss one of our thrilling movie analyses and deep dives. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay tuned for more edge of your seat content.